Good morning, my friends. It is Friday. We are here for our reading lesson for Friday. So if you haven't seen Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, make sure you watch those first before you come here. So today for our lesson, we are going to be talking about our story elements of the story Officer Buckle and Gloria. So we talked about story elements last week, and we talk about story elements at school all the time. So you should be very, very familiar with this, but we're going to go over it one more time, okay? So when we're talking about story elements, we talk about the setting, which is where and when a story takes place. We talk about the characters, who are the people or animals in the story. We talk about problems. Oops, there's a problem. A problem is what goes wrong. We talk about how the characters try to solve the problem, and then we finally get to our solution, how the characters completely fix the problem. So we are going to talk about our story elements today while we read Officer Buckle and Gloria. And our target, I'm sure you've already guessed, is this. I'll read, then you read. I can determine the story elements of a text. Great. So we're going to decide the setting, the talking characters, the problem, the attempts to resolve the problem, and yes, there's a solution. We're going to decide all of these things in the text, Officer Buckle and Gloria. So let's watch it one last time. This story is so wonderful, and then we'll get started. I want to make sure you guys can hear it really well, so I'm going to try that one more time.
Officer Buckle and Gloria by Peggy Rathman. Officer Buckle knew more about safety tips than anyone else in Knappville. Every time he thought of a new one, he thumbtacked it to his bulletin board. Safety tip number 77, never stand on a swivel chair. Officer Buckle shared his safety tips with the students at Knappville School. Nobody ever listened. Sometimes there was snoring. Afterward, it was business as usual. Mrs. Topple, the principal, took down the welcome banner. Never stand on a swivel chair, said Officer Buckle. But Mrs. Topple didn't hear him. Then one day, Knappville's police department bought a police dog named Gloria. When it was time for Officer Buckle to give the safety speech at the school, Gloria went along. Children, this is Gloria, announced Officer Buckle. Gloria obeys my commands. Gloria, sit. And Gloria sat. Officer Buckle gave safety tip number 1. Keep your shoelaces tied. The children sat up and stared. Officer Buckle checked to see if Gloria was sitting at attention. She was. Safety tip number 2, said Officer Buckle. Always wipe up spills before someone slips and falls. The children's eyes popped. Officer Buckle checked on Gloria again. Good dog, he said. Officer Buckle thought of a safety tip he had discovered that morning. Never leave a thumbtack where you might sit on it. The audience roared. Officer Buckle grinned. He said the rest of the tips with plenty of expression. The children clapped their hands and cheered. Some of them laughed until they cried. Officer Buckle was surprised. He had never noticed how funny safety tips could be. After this safety speech, there wasn't a single accident. The next day, an enormous envelope arrived at the police station. It was stuffed with thank you letters from the students at Knappville School. Every letter had a drawing of Gloria on it. Officer Buckle thought the drawing showed a lot of imagination. his favorite letter was written on a star-shaped piece of paper. It said, "You and Gloria make a good team. Your friend Claire. P.S. I always wear a crash helmet. Safety tip number 7. Officer Buckle was thumbtacking Claire's letter to his bulletin board when the phones started ringing. Grade schools, high schools, and daycare centers were calling about the safety speech. Officer Buckle, they said, our students want to hear your safety tips. And please, bring along that police dog. Officer Buckle told his safety tips to 313 schools. Everywhere he and Gloria went, children sat up and listened. After every speech, Officer Buckle took Gloria out for ice cream. Officer Buckle loved having a buddy. Then one day, a television news team videotaped Officer Buckle in the State College auditorium. When he finished safety tip number 99, do not go swimming during electrical storms, the students jumped to their feet and applauded. Bravo! Bravo! They cheered. Officer Buckle bowed again and again. That night, Officer Buckle watched himself on the 10 o'clock news. The next day, the principal of Knappville School telephoned the police station. Good morning, Officer Buckle. It's time for our safety speech. Officer Buckle frowned. I'm not giving any more speeches. Nobody looks at me anyway. Oh, said Mrs. Topple. Well, how about Gloria? Could she come? Someone else from the police station gave Gloria a ride to the school. Gloria sat on stage looking lonely. Then she fell asleep. So did the audience. After Gloria left, Knappville School had its biggest accident ever. It started with a puddle of banana pudding. Splat, splatter, sploosh. Everyone slid smack into Mrs. Topple, who screamed and let go of her hammer. The next morning, a pile of letters arrived at the police station. Every letter had a drawing of the accident. Officer Buckle was shocked. At the bottom of the pile was a note written on a paper star. Officer Buckle smiled. The note said, Gloria missed you yesterday. Your friend Claire. P.S. Don't worry, I was wearing my helmet. Safety tip number 7. Gloria gave Officer Buckle a big kiss on the nose. Officer Buckle gave Gloria a nice pat on the back. Then Officer Buckle thought of his best safety tip yet. Safety tip number 101. Always stick with your buddy. The end.
All right, my friends, so that was our final time watching Officer Buckle and Gloria together. If you'd like to visit that book again, you are more than welcome to at any time to rewatch the video and see that part of it if you need to use it to help you to help complete an assignment. Okay, so today, like I told you, we are talking about story elements, and I want us to think through what we noticed in the book this time when we read them. What did we notice about the setting? Which characters were talking, what was the problem, and how did they try to solve it, okay? So let's start with the setting. When we talk about setting, we said that we want to know where and when the story is happening. And when I think about that, I know that the story happened in a lot of different places. At the beginning, the officer was at his police station, but then he also goes somewhere to give speeches. Where does he give the speeches? Yeah, at schools, right. And then the one time when the news comes, he goes back to somewhere to watch the story. Where does he watch the news broadcast? Yeah, right from his house. Officer Buckle goes to his house. So those are all places that this story happens. So I'm going to put each of those things up. The setting for part of it is the police station. For another part, it's the school. And another part, it's Mr. Buckle's Awesome. So now we want to think about the characters. And this was a little bit tricky for me to decide which characters were talking because some characters communicated with us through letters. And so I had to kind of think about this. And one of the characters was an animal, and the animals don't really talk. So I had to think about this a little bit. And I want to hear your opinion about it too and see if you agree with me. So the first character that all of us are thinking of is Officer Buckle. Great job. I called him Mr. Buckle. So Officer Buckle, he definitely is a talking character. He loves to talk for all of his speeches and he loves to give safety tips. So the other really big character in the story that I thought of right away was Gloria. And I was like, oh, Gloria's got to be on there. And then I said, well, wait a minute. Does Gloria talk? And then I thought about it more and I said, well, Gloria's a dog, so she doesn't talk like a human, but she does communicate with Officer Buckle by when she gives him kisses to say that she's happy, and she was acting things out on stage with her body. And do you think that acting is a way of communicating? Yeah, I kind of do. So I decided that Gloria is a talking character. She talks with her body. The way that she acts is the way she communicates with us. So yeah, I put her on here. All right. Now, there were two characters that I thought about that were at the school. Can you think of a character that was at the school that maybe talked? There was a character that was the principal of their school. Do you remember her name? Her name was Mrs. Topple. And Mrs. Topple did talk. She called Mr. Buckle on the phone to tell him that they wanted him to come and give another speech. And that was after the news crew was there. And Mr. Buckle said, no, I don't want to come. Officer Buckle decided he was too sad and he didn't want to give speeches anymore. But so Mrs. Topple asked for Gloria instead. So she definitely was a talking character. Now, there's one more character that I thought about that wrote some letters to Officer Buckle. And even though we didn't hear her voice, the way she was communicating was through her writing, and we got to see what she wrote to Mr. Buckle. So I think that she's a talking character. Do you know her name? Her name was Claire. Claire wrote two really important letters to Officer Buckle. And both times she talked about the safety skills that she was using and what safety strategy she was using with wearing her helmet when there was the big mess at the school. She stayed safe. All right. So next I want to hear from you. O is oops, there's a problem. What is the problem after that news broadcast goes out and Officer Buckle watches it from the house? There's a problem. What is it? Yeah, so Officer Buckle decides that he doesn't want to give speeches anymore. He feels a little bit sad. Yeah, that's a problem because he really had some good tips to give to people. And now that he's feeling sad about not getting as much attention as he thought he was getting, and a lot of people were watching Gloria instead of listening to his words, he feels like a little bummed out and sad. So he doesn't want to do his speeches anymore. And that's a problem because the world needs to hear Officer Buckle's speeches because they want to be able to stay safe at their school. So what are we going to do to solve this now? What did the characters try? Officer Buckle decided he didn't want to speak anymore. So what did they do first so that the kids could still learn about safety? Were you thinking about Gloria? Yeah, Gloria tries to do it all by herself. She's not very good at it though, but they tried and it didn't really work. Everybody slept, including Gloria. So after that, the kids are still a little bummed, and then there's that big accident at school, and they're like, this is not working for us. We're still getting a lot of like dangerous things happening at school because we're not following safety tips and we need help. So they write a whole bunch of letters, right? And which letter from what character does Officer Buckle really read and hear about? Yeah, Claire. Claire writes a letter saying that they really missed Officer Buckle and that they make a good team, him and Gloria, and they need him back. So she tries to write a letter. Now, finally, at the end, we have a solution, and that's what our why is. Yes, there's a solution. And the solution is that Officer Buckle and Gloria will do what? They'll work together, right? They'll be partners. They're best buds and they're going to share together because that's the best way it works. When Officer Buckle's alone, it's kind of a little boring. When Gloria's alone, everybody sleeps. It just doesn't work. But together, they're a really great team. So that was their solution. They're going to do it together. So I have Mr. Buckle and Gloria are partners again. And I put that as our solution. Great. So my friends, this kind of retold a lot of the important things from our story. Now today you have a task in Google Classroom and it's to answer some comprehension questions. Remember, comprehension is how we understand a book. And we've read Officer Buckle and Gloria 5 times this week, every day this week. And if you want to see it again, I told you you could watch our videos over if you want to listen to the story one more time. But I'm thinking that each time you heard this story, you were absorbing more and more into your mind and you were noticing new things each time and you have a lot of ideas in your head about what happened in the story. So our target for today in Google Classroom is I can answer questions about the book Officer Buckle and Gloria. So you're going to go into Google Classroom and there are going to be some questions listed and you're going to try to answer them. You want to use complete sentences and you're going to type your answer. Now I did tell you last week if it's tricky for you to type your answer, it's okay if you want to write them down on a piece of paper and then have a grown-up take a picture and send it to your teacher. Okay? So whichever way works best for you, but I want to see that work from you. So happy Friday. Get your work done and then enjoy your weekend. Bye everyone.